Look around your city right now, and you will notice something strange happening. It's not a dramatic collapse, but a quiet, persistent disruption. Restaurants are closing their doors early because they simply cannot find enough cooks. It's a recurring, frustrating sign you see on windows everywhere. Construction projects are stalling, not for lack of concrete or steel, but for a lack of hands to build. The physical work of the world is slowing down. Hospitals are spending millions in operational budgets just to recruit nurses from thousands of miles away. It feels like a local, temporary headache. But if you step back and look at the headlines, you realize this isn't just a local issue. It is a global phenomenon, and governments are reacting in panic. Take Maria, a registered nurse in Manila. She is excellent at her job. She spent years training, studying, and working long, thankless shifts. But lately, her phone hasn't stopped buzzing. She's receiving recruitment offers from hospitals in Canada, the UK, and Germany, all at the same time. She is being courted like a star athlete. These offers are aggressive, well-funded, and urgent. They aren't asking, they are bidding. Maria's story is a tiny reflection of a massive global system shift. We are witnessing the beginning of a fierce global competition for human beings. Countries are no longer just making policies for their own citizens. They are effectively fighting to attract the very lifeblood of their economies. You see it everywhere. Canada sets aggressive targets to bring in hundreds of thousands of new residents every single year. Germany is overhauling its once strict visa rules to fast-track foreign talent. Even Japan, historically famous for closed borders, is rolling out the red carpet. The surface-level explanation is that this is an immigration story, a debate about borders, politics, and cultural identity. But if you look closer, that is not what is happening at all. This isn't about politics. It is about a desperate structural necessity. To understand the game, you have to look at the global economy as if it were a giant, interconnected chessboard. Every nation on this board has a fixed set of pieces: human workers. These pieces are the engine of the entire system. For decades, we believed these pieces were infinite. We assumed growth would always be fueled by a constant stream of new workers. But today the board is changing. There are no new pieces being created. When a country gains a worker, another country loses one. It is a zero-sum game. This is the hidden mechanism running the modern world. Working-age labor is becoming one of the scarcest economic resources. Wealthy nations are engaged in a high-stakes bidding war. They aren't fighting with armies, they are fighting with visas and salaries. Why is this happening now? To understand the urgency, we have to look back at how we built this world in the first place. For a century, our society operated on one massive, unspoken assumption: that human labor would always be plentiful. After the Second World War, the demographic structure of almost every developed country looked like a perfect, sturdy pyramid. A massive base of young workers at the bottom, supporting a small, manageable group of retirees at the top. Because of this, growth was the default setting. You build a factory, workers arrive. You build suburbs, you assume there are enough plumbers to maintain them. The system worked because the labor pool was infinite. It was the bedrock of our global economy. But over the last few decades, that foundational assumption broke. Two things happened simultaneously. First, medical advancements meant we started living much longer. The top of the pyramid began to widen significantly. And second, as societies became wealthier and more educated, birth rates plummeted. We stopped having as many kids. The demographic pyramid inverted. The base of young workers shrank, and the top layer of retirees exploded. The demand for labor stayed exactly the same. We still need the hospitals to run, the roads to be paved, and the logistics to move. But the supply of young, capable humans started to vanish. This is why the bidding war began. Countries are optimizing their national infrastructure just to poach talent. They are making their countries sticky for workers. Look at how the battle is fought. Australia targets specific trades with high-paying, specialized visas. The UK aggressively recruits foreign medical staff to prop up its health system, creating specialized pathways for doctors. Canada uses a point-based system, a hyper-efficient calculator, to determine exactly which professionals are most valuable. Universities have become the primary recruitment centers. A degree is no longer just education, it's a golden ticket. A modern Western university acts as a sophisticated funnel designed to pull young talent across borders and keep them there. It is an international talent draft. Passports, visas, and salaries are the currency. Workers now have unprecedented leverage. They are selling their labor to the highest national bidder, turning the world into a single, interconnected labor market. But here is the twist. For decades, wealthy countries assumed there would always be another country with young workers to recruit. That was the fail-safe. When one well ran dry, you just drilled into another, but that assumption is quietly disappearing. Birth rates are now falling almost everywhere, even in the countries we once counted on to export labor. The countries that once supplied nurses, engineers, and builders are beginning to need them at home. Their own economies are maturing. They have their own cities to build, their own systems to run, and their own aging populations to care for. For the first time in modern history, there may be no large reserve of young workers left to recruit globally. They will begin hoarding their own human capital. The global well of labor is drying up. It is the ultimate zero-sum game. Not every country can import workers forever. It's physically impossible. So, imagine you are the government of an aging country. You cannot create 20-year-olds overnight. You cannot force people to have babies tomorrow. And you are realizing importing workers isn't a long-term fix. It's a temporary patch for a terminal illness. You are left with one final option. When you run out of humans to hire, you have to fundamentally change the nature of the work itself. You have to build workers that aren't human. You have to invent your way out of a demographic collapse. This is why we are seeing a massive, desperate acceleration in technology. The explosion of automation isn't just a trend. It is a mathematical necessity. Self-checkout lanes, shipping ports, robotic farming equipment, they are not for cost-cutting. They are for keeping the lights on. They are filling the gaps where humans used to be, ensuring the infrastructure keeps moving. Fast food restaurants are experimenting with robotic fry cooks because no one is applying for the shifts. Factories are being redesigned to operate with just a few technicians watching massive fleets of autonomous machines. Governments are spending billions to upskill the remaining workforce for this new reality. Humanity is adapting to a much smaller demographic footprint. We are learning to produce more with fewer people. When you step back, the reality is clear. This was never a story about immigration. It was a story about labor becoming finite. Think back to Maria, the nurse in Manila. She has a choice. If she takes the job in Toronto, her life improves. Canada gets a boost. But Manila loses one of its best nurses. The global total stays exactly the same. No new nurse was created. She simply changed teams on the board. And as the board runs out of pieces, the game changes for everyone. You will never look at a help wanted sign or a visa headline the same way again. They are just tiny, visible pieces of a global mechanism adapting to a new, tighter reality. The worker shortage is not a temporary glitch. It is the new baseline. It is a fundamental shift in the engine of civilization. If human labor is finite and countries hit the limit of who they can hire, what happens when there simply aren't enough people left? What happens when the bidding war ends because there are no more bidders? We built a civilization based on infinite growth, but we are now running out of the one thing that powers it: humans. We are entering an era of scarcity that we aren't prepared for. The question isn't just who will do the work. The question is, what happens to the world when the workers run out? Can AI replace an entire generation?